The more I learn about the brain, the more I realize that so many things we blame on personality without actually thinking about the scientific explanation for it. Sometimes we call ourselves lazy when we are actually mentally exhausted. Sometimes we think we are just bad at making decisions when our brain is actually making those decisions much harder when we take them later in the day. Sometimes we think that we're very broken because anything that happens we start overthinking without realizing that we are actually training our brains to become really good at overthinking. That's why we do it so much. And all of these really remind you that some things are very much biological. Your brain is constantly changing, is constantly adapting, and is actually learning from the life that you are living right now, which means that the habits you are repeating today are literally shaping the brain you will have tomorrow. And this week alone I really learned about neuroscience, and I came across 5 facts that I really thought that it was very good mentioning for all of us. So let's talk about it. Have you ever noticed that the version of you in the morning is not the same version of you in the nighttime? And sometimes it really feels like 2 different people. In the morning, you have that mindset, I'm going to get things done, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to save money, I'm going to eat healthy. You have so many things that you want to accomplish, but actually in the nighttime, you're doing the opposite. If you had the intention of saving money in the morning, in the nighttime, you spend money. If you had the intention of eating healthy in the morning, in the nighttime, you actually order a takeaway. And then it turns out there's actually a reason for that, and it's called decision fatigue. Every decision you make throughout the day, what you wear, what you eat, the messages you reply to, solving problems at work, deciding what you want to cook, all of these uses a little bit of your mental energy. But by the evening, your brain has made hundreds, if not thousands, of tiny decisions, and your logical thinking is simply more tired, which means that your brain is trying to consume some of the energy that has used throughout the day. All of this to say that if there is something very important that you need to decide, maybe a career decision, a difficult conversation, a financial decision, try not to make that by the evening, because your brain will normally give you wiser answers in the morning. The next one is that your brain actually copies the people around you, and that's where you have to look at your friendships and people that are around you completely different. Have you ever been in a situation where you spend the whole afternoon with someone who is constantly complaining, and somehow by the time you get home you feel very negative too? Or maybe you have spent the time with someone who is incredibly calm, and afterwards you notice you feel calmer as well. This isn't just imagination. This is because your brain is incredibly social. They are constantly learning from the people around you. Now, scientists have found out that when we spend time with other people, our brain often begins synchronizing with their emotional pattern, and this is one of the reasons why we catch their vibe. I always say this in every of my videos. I'm not saying for you to go ahead and cut your friends out. What I'm saying is you have to be very attentive to who you surround yourself with, because if it has this negative impact in you, then this is something that you should start considering, and you need to be very alert when you are close to them, because I understand life happens and we all need support, but it is a reminder to pay attention to the environment you are in always, because if you are constantly surrounded by chaos, your brain will start believing chaos is actually normal, and that's what you don't want. If you are constantly surrounded by people who gossip, complaining starts feeling normal, gossiping starts feeling normal, and that's what we don't want. But if you surround yourself with people that are kind, healthy, then your brain starts learning that those are the patterns. So this again is one more reminder that people around you not just influence your mood, they quietly influence your mind as well, and we should all be aware of this. Now, the third fact is that your brain actually works while you are sleeping. Most people think that ending lands when they close the book, but in fact that's when one of the most important parts begins. When you are sleeping, your brain is not shut down, it's literally incredibly busy. Of course, as you all know, throughout the day your brain collects amounts of information, new conversation, new experiences, new skills, random random facts, emotions, and while you are sleeping, especially in deep sleeping, your brain actually starts strengthening some memories. It also removes unnecessary information and literally organizes everything that you have learned, and this process is called memory consolidation. It's one reason why students often remember information better after a good night of sleep than after staying awake all night studying, because sleep doesn't just rest your brain, it actually helps building it. And incredibly enough, this actually changes how we think about the last hour before bed, because imagine focusing that 16 minutes on negative news, celebrity drama, stressful comments, and all of that, because the final information your brain processes before actually going to bed is what it will start working on. But now compare that with actually reading a good book, listening to calm music or journaling. I'm not saying that the final hour determines your entire future, but it does influence the emotional and informational environment you're giving your brain before it starts sorting through the daily experiences. That's why many people notice improvements in mood, memory, and sleep quality. So just understand that your bedtime is not the end of the day, it's actually preparation for tomorrow. Okay, fourth fact is that every habit actually rewinds your brain, and this actually might be my favorite fact, is that your brain physically changes based on what you repeatedly do. For many years, scientists believed that the adult brain was mostly fixed. Now we know that that's not true. Your brain is constantly stretching frequently used neural pathways and allowing less used ones to weaken over time. Think about learning to drive. At first, it feels impossible. You are thinking about mirrors, pedals, indicators, traffic, speed. Everything feels very much overwhelming. Then months later, you are driving while having a conversation because the pathways have become stronger through repetition. The same thing happens with your thoughts. If every day your brain practices worrying, it becomes more efficient at worrying. If every day you practice comparing yourself to everyone online, that pathway becomes stronger too. But the opposite is also true. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you challenge a negative thought, you are giving your brain a different path to strengthen. This is incredibly hopeful because it literally means that your current habits do not have to become your permanent identity. And people often say, I'm just an anxious person, I'm just lazy, I'm just someone who overthinks. Sometimes those struggles are very real, and many also involve mental health conditions that deserve proper support. But many everyday thinking patterns become stronger simply because they've been repeated through years. And the reason why I say that this one is my favorite is because the encouraging news is that your brain can continue changing throughout your lifetime. The small choices that you decide to consistently repeat matter far more than the dramatic changes you can sustain. And before you start imagining, I am not saying with this that your brain is going to change overnight or that you can build a new brain overnight. What I'm saying is, if you build a repeated pattern and if you build a repeated action over time, this can have a positive effect in your brain. Okay, the fifth one and last one is that your brain believes what you repeatedly tell yourself. And out of everything that we talked today, this is the one I really hope you remember, is that think about how you speak to yourself. Not how you speak to your friends, not how you speak with strangers, but how you speak to yourself. Because maybe you've said things like, I'm useless, I am weak, I am awkward, I always mess things around, I've never been good enough. And sometimes those thoughts become so automatic that we can barely notice them anymore. But your brain does. Just so you can understand this better, research shows that self-talk can influence emotional regulation, stress responses, and confidence and performance. Repeated self-talk can reinforce negative beliefs, while when you use balanced and compassionate self-talk, that actually supports your resilience and your motivation. Because imagine someone follows you around all day saying, you are going to fail, you are embarrassing, you are not smart enough. Eventually, you would probably start believing them. Yet many of us say even harsher things to ourselves. And the goal isn't to pretend everything is perfect. It's also not about toxic positivity. But sometimes you do mistakes. Sometimes things don't go as you plan. And healthy self-talk doesn't ignore that at all. It simply speaks with honesty instead of cruelty. Instead of you saying, I'll never be able to do this, you need to say something like, I can't do it yet, but I will. That one word yet completely changes the direction of the sentence. Because when you say the first one, it literally just closes all the doors. But the second one actually gives you room for growth. The next time you catch yourself bullying yourself internally, notice it, challenge it, and replace it. You don't have to believe every thought your brain produces. Sometimes your thoughts are experiences. They are not always the fact, what is real. So not just you, but all of us, we need to become aware of the voice in our head, because you will hear more than anyone else for the rest of your life. So please make sure that it's someone worth listening to. What I love most is that none of today's facts are just interesting trivia. They are very practical. They change how we plan our days, who we spend time with, how we end our evenings, the habits that we repeat, and the way we speak to ourselves. Your brain is listening to what you do every single day. So give it something worth learning. I would love to know which of these brain facts surprised you the most, or if you know any fascinating brain fact that everyone should hear, please let us know. Leave it in the comments so we can all support each other. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe, and if you are new here, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.